Hi, boys and girls. This is Grandma Sheila, and our story this week is called Love in a Bucket. Strange name. Well, Tiffany, she had come downstairs, and she could smell the best aromas coming out of the kitchen. So she rushed in to see what Mom was up to. Mom was bent over and she had the oven door open and she was pulling out a round pan of buns. Then she pulled out 2 loaves of fresh bread. My, did that ever smell good. And then she looked up on the counter and there was Mom's favorite casserole full of scalloped potatoes. Stephanie said, "Are we celebrating something, Mom?" And Mom said, "Well, kind of. Your brother Will just got a job." Well, Tiffany thought, what's the big deal about that? He's 25 years old, he never went to college, and he lives at home. And Mom, she didn't see Tiffany roll her eyes. But Mom said, "We're really happy that he got a job. He needs to have a job." Tiffany said, "Where's he going to work, Mom?" And Mom kind of looked around a little bit, and finally she said, "Tiffany, Will's going to be the janitor at your school." Oh, Tiffany couldn't believe this. What kind of punishment for her was this? She said, "Mom, why?" Mom said, "Well, you should be glad he got a job." And Tiffany went, "Oh, you don't understand." And she went running to her bedroom. Well, Mom looked around and thought, So she followed Tiffany, and Tiffany was on her bed all frustrated and upset. And Mom said, "What's the matter, Tiffany?" And she said, "Will's my problem, Mom. You know that when we go to church, he makes funny faces and he tries to talk to everybody. And Mom, it's embarrassing. He's always trying to talk to my friends. And Mother, it's just awful." Mother said, "Now, Tiffany, you know that your brother has a problem. But he's your brother." Tiffany said, "But Mom, why does he have to work at my school? Why can't he work somewhere else?" Mom said, "This is where the job was. So you just need to settle down about this. He's your brother." Well, Tiffany, she just wasn't the least bit happy about this. So the next day she went to school, and she just hoped that she wouldn't see Will. Well, that first week they had Will outside washing windows, so that was a good idea. He wasn't there to embarrass her. Well, the next week he was inside the school, and Tiffany had to happen to walk toward him to go to one of her classes, and he hollered out, "Hi, Tiffany, hi," and he waved at her. She pretended that she didn't see him, and she went down one of the other halls to her classroom. This was so hard. Well, the next week, Tiffany saw him And he said, "Tiffany." And Tiffany, she turned to her friend. This was a new friend. And she said, "I need to go speak to him. He goes to our church." She didn't say, "He's my brother." Tiffany's friend said, "Ooh." And she turned around. She rolled her eyes and she walked the other way. Well, when Tiffany got close to Will, he was mopping up orange juice off the floor that had splattered everywhere and it was all sticky. And he said, "Hi, Tiffany. I'm cleaning up this orange juice that somebody spilled." And Tiffany looked at him and she said, "Will, you know, Mother had told you that you weren't supposed to talk to the students, and I'm one of the students." And he looked puzzled. "But I'm your brother." And she said, "I know you're my brother. That's the problem. Now just don't talk to me. Do you understand?" Well, then all of a sudden there was a look on Will's face, a look of utter sadness. You know, everybody made fun of him, all the kids at church, everywhere he went. But he at least had his family. And now his own sister didn't want to talk to him. And he turned around and looked at her, and he said, "Tiffany, you better go to class now." And he said no more. And he had his mop in his hands, and he started mopping that floor just as hard and fast as he could. Tiffany had never seen him look like that before. Well, she went off to her class. That evening, when both of them happened to get home, Will did not say anything to Tiffany. And Tiffany did not say anything to Will at the dinner table. And after dinner, both of them went to their rooms quickly. Mother sensed the tension that was going on, and she looked at both of them as they went off to their rooms, and she thought, "There's trouble here." So she got up from the dinner table and she headed to Tiffany's room. And she said, "Tiffany, what's the matter? Is there trouble between you and Will?" Tiffany was ashamed. She looked down and she said, "I asked Will not to talk to me at school." And Mom said, "Well, I asked him not to talk to the students because he needed to be doing his work. But his sister?" Tiffany said, "I didn't want to acknowledge he was my brother. I didn't want anybody to know that." Well, Mother had gone into Will's room to check on Kim. And when she'd come into Tiffany's room, she sat down on the edge of the bed and she said, "Will just told me he's quitting his job tomorrow." Tiffany thought, "I should be going, yay." But she didn't feel good about that. She felt so low and so scum-like that she felt she was as low as the belly of an ant to the floor. Mother was ashamed of her. "He's your brother, Tiffany." And she left. And Tiffany thought, you know, it could be the other way around. I could have been born slow, not Will. Oh my, what have I done? Well, she went to bed early, and she tossed and she turned in her bed. She finally decided that she was going to catch up with Will in the morning and ask him to please not quit his job, that it was all her fault. Well, when she got up in the morning, her stomach didn't feel good, and her head didn't feel good, and Will was already gone to work early. Mother said that Tiffany had to eat. Mother had made waffles, which Tiffany loved, but today they tasted like sawdust, and her stomach was going flip-flop, flip-flop. Well, Tiffany went off to school, and she looked down all the halls. Where was Will? So she went down where the offices were, and she could hear some voices in the principal's office. And she peeked in, and there was Will scrubbing stuff off of the wall right by the principal's door. And Tiffany went in, and she saw 4 students sitting in a row on the chairs outside of the principal's office, and they all had their heads down. Tiffany went in to talk to Will, and just about that time, she saw that one of the students that was sitting there, she didn't want to see Clara this morning. So she didn't even speak to her. She turned around to Will, and she said, Will, I don't want you to quit your job. Please don't quit your job. This is a good job for you. It's all my fault, Will. Well, then, her stomach couldn't stand it any longer. And all of a sudden, breakfast started coming on. She looked around. She was outside the principal's office. It was a long ways to the bathroom. And she saw Will's cleaning bucket. And she ran over before she made a mess all over the floor. And she put her head down into that bucket. And she started to throw up. Oh, oh. Will just stood there. Finally, he reached into his pocket and he took out his clean handkerchief and he started wiping the gunk off of his sister's face. She looked at him sadly and she said, please don't quit. Well, then the principal came out and he looked and he saw her throwing up into the work bucket. And he said, oh dear, I think maybe we're going to have an epidemic of the flu. Well then, of course, that horrible smell from vomit hit him. And he kind of went, Will, I'm sorry, but I guess you're going to have to clean this up too. And he quickly went in his office and shut the door. Then he stuck his head back out and he said, you guys just wait here. Your parents will be here soon to get you. He was talking to those 4 people sitting in the chairs. Will looked at his sister and he grinned and he said, I guess I'm going to have to clean up your puke too. And then he got really close to her and he said, isn't that what a brother's for? Boys and girls, there's people that have disadvantages that you guys don't have. They have no choice. in how they were born. Sometimes the way they act isn't the way you would like to see anyone act. But boys and girls, they're God's children, just like you are. Don't make their lives any harder. That's not what Jesus would want you to do. Thank you, boys and girls, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye now.